Are you ready for some good news? Believers receive the blessing that only Jesus should have received. Because in Christ, there's a great exchange. He receives the curse that you and I deserved, and we receive the blessing that only Christ deserved. Here's today's text in Genesis chapter 48 at verse 14. This is a scene where Joseph has brought his boys to be blessed by their grandfather. And Israel, that's Jacob, stretched out his right hand and laid it on the head of Ephraim, who was the younger, and his left hand on the head of Manasseh, crossing his hands, for Manasseh was the firstborn. So once you understand all that this foreshadows, it's one of the most mysterious, breathtakingly beautiful scenes in the entire Old Testament. The aged patriarch Jacob is approaching his death, and Joseph has brought his boys to be blessed by the father of the tribes of Israel. When the dying Jacob extended his hands to bless his grandsons, he confused and disturbed his son Joseph. Joseph had properly placed the older son Manasseh under the blind Jacob's right hand, and the younger Ephraim under the patriarch's left hand. But Jacob stretched out his right hand and laid it on the head of Ephraim, who was the younger, and his left hand on the head of Manasseh, crossing his hands. For Manasseh was the firstborn. But he put his hand, the strong blessing, on the secondborn. Well, Joseph tried to correct him, but Jacob refused. And Jacob kept his hands crossed. And he said, "I know, my son, I know." He was essentially saying, I know what I'm doing. I'm putting the undeserving one in front of the deserving. When the Son hung on the cross, it was as if the Father crossed his hands. It was as if the strong right hand of blessing was lifted from the Son and instead was extended towards you and me. I can imagine the angels like Joseph of old trying to correct the Creator. But Father, the right one should remain on the head of the firstborn of all creation. And I can imagine God replying, I know what I'm doing. Thus you and I and every undeserving secondborn received the right hand of blessing that we never merited. Manasseh means forgetting, as in I've forgotten my troubles. Ephraim sounds like twice fruitful. God not only wants to heal you of your painful memories, but He also wants to make you twice fruitful. Thus, the blessing that Hebrew fathers were given to speak over their children was that God would make them like Ephraim and Manasseh. It's the good news, the great exchange, cloaked in a beautiful Old Testament shadow. It's simply majestic. In Christ, you're like Ephraim and Manasseh. And that's the gospel. You can get other devotionals just like it by clicking right here, or better yet, subscribe to this channel and get them all. And as you go throughout your day, remember God crossed His arms for you.